Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Victorious Friday. You know, every time I come on, I talk about I have a special guest. Well, today is no exception. Today, I'm going to be just having a general conversation with a good friend by the name of Krystal Parker. When I say Krystal, I'm not talking about the burger place down there that we might find those little small burgers. Now, I'm from Chicago, so we call those White Castles. I'm talking about Krystal Parker, who came from a town of 300 in Kansas City. And so she's going to tell us all about her life. She's going to tell us about her passions. But I tell you, she's a person that have a love for the marketplace. She have a love to impart her life into another's life. And she's doing it in a big way in Orlando, Florida. Krystal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Terence. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Man, we are happy to have you. Now, here's what I like to start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit about your background. I know you hate talking about yourself, but this is the one time that we're going to be excited to hear from you. Go ahead.
All right. Well, you're right. I did start out in a very small town in Kansas. It's called Moscow, Kansas. And my dad was a teacher. We raised pigs in the summer, and it was a great life. I couldn't wait to get out of that town. We had 300 people. I always said that counts dogs, cats, and dead people. And boy, was I excited to graduate and get out of that small town. And the minute that I did, I went out, I got to college, and I ended up dropping out of college with 21 hours left of school. And I had to, with my tail between my legs, go all the way back 6.5 hours back to that small town and start over. And that was tough because, you know, in those small towns, that your reputation, your nickname, your life, everything just lives and goes on forever and ever and ever. And I could see the whispers and I could see the talking, and here I am starting all over. But I think sometimes when you make a cake or you do something and it's not quite correct and you don't have all the ingredients that you should, you sometimes just have to throw it out, start over. And that's what God did with me. Is I got to start all over from the foundation and build again. And it's been a blessing ever since.
Well, you know, when you talked about small towns, it reminds me of my father's story. He's from a real small town. In fact, your town would be a big town for him. He grew up in a place called Round Pond, Arkansas. Okay. Now, Round Pond, Arkansas, he grew up, there was 12 homes circling a round pond, and they had about 25 to 50 people in the town. Today, you know, I never could find that town. I always ask people, hey, you know, have you ever heard of Round Pond? They're like, no, never heard of it. Never was on Google Map or anything else. I finally found it on Google Map. If you look it up today, Round Pond, Arkansas. It's booming now. It has 2,500, 3,000 people. Whoa. So it's huge. And so I can relate to the small town. Well, you know, I'm excited. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Tell me about your journey of faith as you were growing up. Was it prevalent in the home, not prevalent? Just give me a little bit of background as to your faith experience growing up as a young child.
Yeah, so my mom and dad did a great job of putting that cornerstone in my life. We had the 10-year perfect attendance award at church. So that basically meant that even if you took off on, you know, for the summer or whatever, we'd always stop at a church somewhere and attend church. The thing that is a little bit of a challenge with that is that I knew about God. I wasn't in relationship with God. We kind of did what I would call Sunday Christian church, where we go to church on Sunday out of duty more than anything, and then just leave it behind and then live our life the way that we were going to live our lives. And that was something that was modeled for me. And I continued that on for many years until I ended up coming back home from college with my tail between my legs to start all over. And that's when I remember, just because that cornerstone was in my life, because I knew about God. I just remember hitting my knees in my early 20s and saying, God, if you're really real, if this is really true, I need you to show me you now, because I don't know if I believe. And because that cornerstone was in my life, I knew to go to him. I just didn't know if I totally believed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So it had a shape on your life. Your parents certainly raised you in the Lord, and but like you say, it's a personal relationship. It's not about what we do. It's about what He's done, and how deep of that intimate, I call it, relationship we have. Well, if we fast forward a little bit, and you think about your faith and your journey and your growth, who would you say, or where would you say had the greatest impact on your life in terms of your faith journey?
Yeah, wow. Well, I'm thankful for my parents for putting the foundation, the cornerstone there, just giving me an opportunity to know God. I think that that journey is oftentimes it's your individual journey, but I didn't really, because it was such a small town. My mom worked, my dad worked, and so I never really saw my parents with many friends or anything like that. So I didn't see value in having a close knit of people that were Christians around me until I moved and ended up in Florida. And I found a great church, sang in the choir. And that's when I started to develop relationship with other Christian women. And I would say that that was a big part of sewing into my life because I got to really see people living out what it means to be a Christian in the world. My dad, unfortunately, struggled with alcoholism his whole life. And so that was a challenge growing up, and it created a lot of chaos around us. And so I really didn't get to see what it meant to live and abide with Christ until it was later modeled for me and watching other people's relationships and having close friendships around me where God was very important and he was abiding in the relationships. And so I would say that really made a big spark difference in how I started to live and model and shape my life, and even as a mom.
And that's so good. And then you went on and had a very successful corporate career. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I kind of got lucky. After I dropped out of college with 21
Well, Bill
hours.
Gates did the same thing, so you just
Yeah,
followed it.
I'm just following after Bill Gates. That's it. Yeah, I got lucky. So 21 hours, dropped out of college, went back to that small town. Well, I figured I'm 20 plus, 20 some years old, 22 probably at the time. I better figure out what I'm going to do. And so there was a temporary agency that had a position stocking shelves in a truck parts store that just happened to be a subsidiary of an oil and gas company. And I thought, well, I'm going to go stock shelves, and this is pretty much what my life is going to be. And started stocking shelves in that truck parts store, and just slowly, progressively growing. Unfortunately, because it was under a trial period to see if the truck parts and the gas company could mirror and work together, it didn't work out. But they did have a front desk position about 30 miles away, and I was able to go and be the front desk secretary of this oil and gas company. And from there, after a couple of years, I remember telling my supervisor, my manager, I feel like I want to make more. I want to do more. Well, he didn't see an opportunity for me to do more in the field. I was the only woman that worked there. Now I was doing the bookkeeping and the secretary stuff. And he said, look, if you want to make more and do more, you're going to have to move. At the time I had a house, sell your house, move 6.5+ hours away, and take an office job there. So I wasn't offended. I just did exactly what he told me to do. Sold my house, moved 6.5 hours away, and the rest is history. And I just started to develop this love for business and enjoyment for business. As I look back now, I can see God's hand on my life, in my path, just in a very short time, from stocking shelves to a place where I became the youngest executive in that oil and gas organization company. It was a Fortune 199 company. And I became an executive running the gas company on the west side of Texas in 47 cities. I ended up getting my undergrad in psychology, master's in marketing, and then they ended up sending me to Harvard Business School for senior executive leaders. And when I sit back and think about, wow, how did I do that? I really understand and recognize only God could have walked me through that journey, one step at a time. But at the time, I didn't really know that it was God's hand on my life. And the higher up I got, Terence, the more I thought it was me that did it.
Yeah, look at that. And then, I remember you sharing a story of when you decided, hey, I'm leaving corporate America. I'm having a conversation, I guess, with my daughter, I think it is.
Mhm.
And she's saying, what? What are you doing? Tell us a little bit about that story again.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth of that story is it's so easy to get lost in it. I always tell people you don't go from being a temp agent to one of the youngest executive in a company in a Fortune 199 without making major sacrifices.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, my marriage at the time was part of that sacrifice. Unfortunately, went through divorce, became a single mom. And gosh, when I went through that divorce, I remember Terrence going like, I have this child. Unfortunately, my ex-husband lost his way. And I'm a single mom. I'm 9 hours away from any family. I'm running the gas company in West Texas, all of customer service for Texas. And I don't know where she even goes to dance. That's how out of touch I was, and really just so focused on my career. It almost had become my drug. It almost had become my obsession, was winning in business. And so, fast forward a little bit of time in there, and becoming a single mom and really having to get focused on what matters, taking care of this kid. It was really a true blessing in my heart and life to be able to nurture my daughter, know my daughter, and she was about 2.5 at the time that happened. And so fast forward a little bit more, and she's about 5. And God just shut that door. It was time for me to go from the company. And I told her, I'm leaving. I'm no longer going to be Krystal Parker with the company anymore. And she cried. And I thought, well, was she gonna, what's she sad about? And she cried. She says, and I'll never forget, we were in Panera grabbing dinner. And she said, if you're not Krystal Parker, vice president, then who are you going to be? And at the time, I was so busy trying to figure it out myself because I
Yes.
had become so vanilla. I didn't know who I was. I was Krystal Parker, vice president. That's who I was. If you stripped away the car, the title, the money, the power, and all that, I truly was completely bland. I didn't know. And the bigger issue now, as I reflect on it, though, Terrence, isn't that alarming to you that your daughter didn't see you as mom?
Mm.
Shouldn't you have been mom first? Like, oh, we're going to be okay. My mom is still
Yeah.
here. But no, it was Krystal Parker, vice president. And that was in the middle of an identity crisis.
Yeah. So many marketplace leaders, they're challenged with that because their worthiness and their weightiness comes
Mhm.
from their position. And when we think about that, it's not intentional, but a lot of times the home is what suffers and our children. But you know, I love the Lord and just his mercy. He says, I'm going to make up for those locust years. And he does. It's just
Mhm.
such an amazing thing. And he certainly has done that.
Yeah.
I know in your life and your child's life. So, as we move forward, now, I mean, you're doing some amazing things with the Orlando Christian Chamber. Tell us about that position, what you're doing there, and just, tell us a little bit about what's happening in Orlando.
Yeah. So the cool thing about God is that his mercy and his grace is made new every single day.
Mhm.
And there were some of those, what you call locust years, that point where you're standing on the side, just looking over that cliff, going, I've got to walk down there. I'll do anything but to walk down that valley. Because, the thing about it is, when you do have those high up positions and you are making multiple six and you can pay to make your problems go away, you don't necessarily have to face where God's calling you out to go.
Mhm.
And you can pay to make it go away for so long
Mhm.
until you get to that place where God's saying, I'm calling you here.
Mhm.
And I tried to do everything I could because that was
Yeah.
a very scary place to be. Is to and the truth of the matter is I was just having this conversation with my mom. And I said, Mom, wouldn't it have been cool to know that if God that God was calling me out for this a book, running the Christian Chamber, doing these things. Like, if I would have known that God was calling me here, would I have walked down that valley sooner and been more obedient? And the answer that came in my spirit almost immediately was, it wouldn't have taken faith.
Yeah.
And so what he's
Yeah.
doing, I believe, is leading us and growing us along the way. And a lot of times we have to take that first step out. And it's scary sometimes to take that step. And so step after step after step, many years passed in between. And I just remember saying to myself, okay, God, you gave me this great success, after I got over Terence thinking that it was something I did, right? Like I was so smart or
Yeah.
so different or whatever. Like, God, you gave me that great success. I mean, I was so young when I was able to do so much in that organization.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really all you have for me? Do you have something else for me? And then on top of that, once I understood that Jesus Christ, the Lord, was my living water.
Mm.
See, what the world will tell you is, if you're having a bad day, then here's the things you can do to make it go away.
Yeah.
All the things the world says.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's love, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's sex, maybe it's rock and roll, maybe it's anything but what the Bible says. And he tells us, I'm the living water. Drink of me and you'll never thirst. And so once I got a taste and understood that I don't need to make these things go away, all I have to do is seek God and put him on the throne of my life, then I couldn't get enough. And I couldn't, and I still can't help but to just share that message with so many people, because I had such a thirst that I couldn't ever quench. There were broken pieces and places in me that nothing could ever touch, like what it has meant to find Christ and allow him to heal me fully and to make me new.
Yeah.
And once that happened, it was like, I just want to give my life to serve you. But then there's this other thing, Terence, and I'm sure your audience knows about that. And it's the need to pay your bills.
Yes.
So it was like, okay,
Just
God,
count the costs.
we have to pay our bills too,
Yes.
right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've got to take care of the basic needs and eat. And so it's like, all right, God, so I can't believe you gave me that success early for me to just not be able to help and impact so many people. And then there's this just desire to serve you fully for the rest of my life. And wouldn't you know it, I couldn't even have scripted it better than God scripted it to bring me to a place in the Christian Chamber. When I met the former president of the Christian Chamber, I met because I joined for my business. I have a consulting business and I still have it today. But I wanted to make relationships in Central Florida in the Christian business community.
Yeah.
When I met him, we had coffee. He went home and he told his wife, I just met my successor. I feel like the Lord has told me I met her. He didn't tell me right away, but God would have it that he would bring me to a place in my life where I could align my passion and gifting in business with my desire to serve him fully. And I get to help Christian business leaders be successful in their business and create what I call kingdom commerce, which is what happens as a result of relationships made in the Christian business community, where people will refer each other and do business together. That pushes out into the community, impacts the churches, and creates what we call kingdom commerce. And so that's really where God's got me today. And then a really cool new project I think we're going to talk about coming up.
Yeah, well, that is so good. And man, thanks for sharing that story. I'm so encouraged. Once as I was listening to you and I was just thinking about God's timing, I think about David, right? So he was told, hey, you're going to become king, right? And Saul's there chasing him all around. He's hiding in caves. And, we would have never gotten the 88 Psalms that David wrote if it wasn't for that time lapse. In fact, it was 14 years between the time he was told and the time he actually became king.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but 14 years, I would have been like, man, maybe I was listening to the wrong person. Maybe I didn't hear the right message or something. But yet, during the entire time, God was at work in David's heart and his life and so forth. So when he did become king, not that he would be perfect in any way, but he would certainly have a heart to serve. And that's how I was just thinking as I was hearing your story. Well, we're going to transition a little bit and kind of talk about something I'm really excited to hear because, some of our audience are marketplace leaders, some are parents, some are both. And I think this next topic, I mean, it's going to really, really excite me. If nothing else, it's going to excite them. And so I just like kind of talk about this new book you have coming out. I
Yes,
believe it's launching in October. If make sure
correct.
I'm right about that, October 2020. But pre-orders is everything, right? So we're going to help people get this book. Now, you've got an interesting title on this, right? Because you
Yeah.
talk about the best robots win. I want to understand that. And then I love this. It ain't personal, it's just business, right? And so tell us a little bit about the title of the book, how did it all come about? How did you come up with this crazy title? And sometimes the publishers do it, but how did you come up with these crazy titles? And give us a quick summary of the book itself.
Okay, well, it's funny on the publisher, you're talking about that.
Yeah.
They actually highly encouraged me to change it, the title. They did
Yeah.
not
They
like the
always do.
title. They
Yeah.
did not like it at all. And
Right.
I said, hey, this is what God gave me. And they
Yeah.
said, well, we're not touching that. Then,
Mhm.
the title of the book, The Best Robot Wins, it really hit me one night when I was walking. I
Mhm.
was building out the Christian Chamber in Central Florida. We're creating the United States Christian Chamber. And I am still a professor at the university. I have my own business as well. Of course, I'm a single mom. And this book opportunity came from the publisher, from the Lord. And I knew that God wouldn't give it to me if it wasn't a real opportunity. And I just remember walking one night, kind of trying to put it all in order and figure out, how am I going to do this? And that's when it hit me. The best robot wins. It was really about, you've got to almost become robotic. You've got to set up the processes, the systems, and the things around you so that you can maximize who you are in these roles and be successful. And that's really what the book's about. It's about aligning processes and systems to maximize the value of your human capital in your organization. So I see business as a machine. I think machines are parts, gears, and axles. They come together, they work together, they power something or create some sort of power. Well, that's what business is. Your business is people, processes, and systems. And when they work together, boy, they work great. And when they don't, there's a problem. And actually, I share this in the book, but I think it's such a great illustration of what I'm talking about here. So I live in Orlando, and one day, Giovanna, my daughter, and I, we went to Universal, and it was one of the Harry Potter rides. And we've been in there and ridden this ride so many times. It's one of our favorites, the Forbidden Journey. You get on, you're swept away, you almost feel like you're flying like Harry Potter. And all of a sudden, the ride stopped. We're both facing up like this. One of the biggest, scariest spiders is like on top of us. The smoke is filling the room. The mystical sounds are going through our ears. And it was all good. We grabbed each other's hand because it was a little scary. And then we sat there. And then we sat there a little longer and a little longer. Next thing you know, we could hear people talking. And finally, I think they just gave up on trying to fix it in the dark. So we see flashlights, and then they flipped the lights on. And when the lights came on, it was like all the magic, all the mystery, everything just went away. And you could see the strings, the domes, the green screens. All we were on pods. We weren't on anything that I thought we were on. And the reality started to come together. Well, that's what happens in a business. All these parts and pieces have to work together to create this experience for your customer so that you can best serve them. However, there's a competitive advantage that lies within the business, and that's the people. So I love to say it ain't personal, it's just business. But business is made up of people, and people are individuals. And within each individual in your organization lies your greatest competitive advantage. The problem is we expect humans to be robots. I remember someone told me once, Krystal, if I died today, they would pull me out of this chair and somebody else would be sitting here doing the exact same thing I'm doing. She felt no value. And then I remembered when I left after 15 years of giving my life, blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice to that organization, I was vanilla. I was bland. So, is it possible to create an environment in your organization where not only your humans feel like they are valued, that their passion and purpose can align with your mission of the organization? And my answer is yes. And I use two of the most famous parables from the Bible to illustrate how to do that in your organization, because I believe that the Bible is the greatest book of business that's ever been written. It's the holy living word. It's our everything. It's our guide to life, but it's the greatest training manual for business that's ever been written. And hopefully the people that take time to read the book and really dive in, not only grow personally and professionally, but they're able to grow spiritually as well. So I'm so excited about this project.
No, that sounds like we need to get the book, and I know it's coming up, uh, and I'm going to get at the end as to how we can get a copy of that book. I'm trying to think because I need a copy of the book. Of course, I need an autographed copy,
Of
and I'll be
course.
seeing you soon, so I'll be getting an autographed copy. So just have
Yeah,
it ready for me,
it will
and
be.
say some nice stuff in there so I can show all my friends. Uh, so, when I think about this book, I think about your life. I think about principles. I think about
Mm,
truths that impacted you, right? That made a difference. You mentioned a couple of parables that that impact. I think about just your story around the when you were on the ride. That once the lights revealed the true nature of the ride, it was like a disillusion, right? Experience, because with the lights off, it looked different. The world looked different, and your environment looked different. But when they turned the lights on, reality was reflected.
mm,
And I think that's the case in a lot of businesses and homes today. That
yeah.
sometimes we live in this disillusion, this unrealistic life, and it has all the bells and whistles, it seems. But then when the light is shed on it, it doesn't look so good. It doesn't look the same.
Mhm.
But yet, when the Lord's light is shined on it, oh, it's glorious, right? And all of a sudden things start to look amazing.
Mm,
I was just thinking about that as you were telling your story,
mm.
how amazing his light through his grace and his mercy really is, that transforms our life, not only in this lifetime, but forever. But you talked about something about affirmation.
Mm.
And I think that's so critical. I think everyone's seeking affirmation. They're seeking acceptance. They're seeking, that they matter and their life makes a difference. And like you say, if an employer can just show that person, if a parent can just show their child, they're seeking that affirmation, aren't they? What,
Oh,
what
yeah.
was your experience as you look at writing this book and the truths and the things? Give me one or two, maybe stories or examples that you can pull out of the book and apply it here today for our audience.
Yeah, well, just even as being a parent, the thing that really excites me about my daughter is that
Mm,
she's had a crazy journey already. I mean,
mm,
by the time she was a second or third grader, she had already lived and moved 8 times. With the oil and gas business, I said yes and we went. And so she's had a lot. And I remember when we were moving her from second grade, and I was talking with her teacher, and her teacher said to me, she said, and this was great advice. She said, listen, don't put that pressure on yourself. This is part of her journey too.
mhm,
God blessed me to be her mom, but he also blessed her to have me as her
yeah,
mom.
yeah,
And I think the biggest thing, that the disillusion, if you will, that people have to deal with is that they're not enough,
mm,
that they're not enough.
mhm,
And I would just say that you not only are you enough, that God made you to be enough and he will qualify you. I love to tell and remind people that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And when you were talking about David, I was thinking about David and Goliath. And I remember the part in the story of David and Goliath where David's going to fight this huge giant. And they're like, here, put our armor on. This is a boy with a man's armor, and this armor is heavy. And he was right. If I go and fight with this armor on, I'm going to get crushed. He used the tools that he knew he could be successful with
Yeah.
that were innate to him. And I remember so many times mom guilt, man, I was sitting on the bathroom crying because I missed another Christmas program. I had to sacrifice this and I wasn't enough. But that didn't make me bad. See, I think sometimes the enemy tries to make us feel guilty that we're not enough, that we're not good enough. And when we are leading in an environment where we have workers and we're constantly telling them and comparing them to others and not supporting them on their journey or making them miss certain things because you put your personal problems at the door and you leave it and come in here and you're not supposed to be human. We're told that, but guess what? We are human and God made each one of us special and for a time such as this. It's not a mistake who you are. Now, I firmly believe in personal growth. I think that it's wise to grow personally and professionally, but sometimes we have to get okay with who we are. Quit trying to compare ourselves. The fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. Walk your journey. Walk this path that God put you on today. And let me tell you, if you're avoiding something because you're afraid, then take that step in faith because faith will move the hand of God in your life and the people that you love, your kids, your spouses, those around you, they will be blessed because you've shown faith and courage and obedience to live the calling in the life that God called you perfectly for a time as this. Maybe not perfect in the standard of the world, but perfect because of who God called you to be and who he needs you to be in this time. And so I could go on for days, Terence, but I'm so passionate about people being their authentic self and living their best life because it's the only one you're going to get. And time is short. Do you want to spend it trying to be somebody you're not? I know what that feels like. Or do you want to try to spend it being the best you that you can be? Because God can really use you for so much if you just lean into who he's made you to be. You're more than enough and you're more than qualified. So be your best you.
Man, I love that. I think that's it. I think we're gonna conclude it right there, Krystal. And I mean, I think that is going to be an encouragement to so many. But before we leave, I want them to understand this crazy title, this crazy book, this whole, the best robot wins. It ain't personal. It's just business. October 2021. Where can I get a copy of this thing? How can I pre-order? How can I tell my folks how to pre-order? Because pre-order sales are like the thing.
They're
How do we
gold.
pre-order the book?
Well, I figured everybody would remember the title, The Best Robot Wins. So just go to thebestrobotwins.com. You'll find all the details there and you can pre-order the book.
Okay, what's that URL again?
Thebestrobotwins.com.
Very good. Well,
www.thebestrobotwins.com. You'll find it all there.
there you go. And I always encourage my listeners not to just buy one book, buy 3 books, because you want to gift this book to your friends. And so those robots out there, they want to win. And so get a couple of books, gift them to your friend. Krystal will love you for it. We're trying to get her on the New York Times bestseller so we can then say, hey, we got a New York Times bestseller on, although we have several. So that way Krystal can join the New York Times bestseller list. Thank you guys. Krystal, thank you so much for your time and just sharing your heart. I think it's just going to be an inspiration. And you can continue to find many of these type of talks at victoriousfamily.org. We look forward to connecting with you. Reach out, get our newsletter. If you have questions, let us know. But more importantly, if you have prayer requests, we love to be praying for you. And so thank you so much. Have a blessed day.